Hello my loves, welcome back. Today we're going to talk all about Malasana. We're going to discuss how to do Malasana, some common reasons why you struggle in Malasana, some modifications, and a few tips and tricks along the way. If you're interested in a full class focused all around Malasana, then check out my Patreon. One of this month's classes was all about a yoga flow focused on Malasana. The link is in the description. So let's go over Malasana. Come into standing, and as you come into standing, have the feet a little bit wider than shoulder width apart. Now I like to start with my feet wide, just to see how I'm feeling for today. Take an inhale and rise, and as you exhale, hinge at the hips and fold forward. As you fold forward, feel the feet connected to the floor, heels connected to the floor, ball of the foot connected to the floor. Hands might rest on the floor. Toes slightly turned out here. Bend the knees and sit the hips back. Now as you sit the hips back and down, the hips stay lifted away from the floor. Your pelvis is not connected to the floor. You're not sitting down here. The hands will come to the inside, hands towards the heart, palms together, elbows to the inside of the knees, and then you come into your Malasana, your deep squat here. Now typically, the feet are closer together. However, for many people that can be a bit of a challenge, so I always advise to have wider feet first and then work on drawing them in. Now as you do this, notice that if your heels started to lift away from the floor, do you have issues with your ankle mobility here? That's usually the first thing that we see go a little bit awry with Malasana, is that people tend to do Malasana here with their heels lifted away from the floor. Not that that's wrong, but you might find a little bit of more availability in the pose if you modify. The first modification I'm going to suggest is using a block. So find a block, and you might find that you may need more than one block. So have them nearby, take your block and place it behind you. Now I like to test mine on its medium value when I'm teaching this to my clients and my students. Take an inhale, rise up, exhale, hinge at the hips, fold forward, and then bend the knees, sit your bum down onto your block. Can you keep your heels onto the floor here? Can your hands come to the inside edge? And can you find Malasana here? This might be your modification. Now the other thing that you can do is work on lowering your block, bringing your block down to a lower value so that you have some support, and just see if that is what can still keep the heels connected to the floor. Is that available for you? If so, then work on just tipping the pelvis up a little bit here so that you have just a little brief amount in your Malasana, in that little squat here. Now if ankle mobility really is your issue, then what I suggest you do is find yourself a blanket, or you could use a yoga wedge. I'll show you the variation with the blanket first. So I folded up my blanket so that I've got a nice slope here. My heels are going to come onto this top edge, but the ball of the foot is going to come onto my mat. I inhale, exhale, hinge forward, and then I sit. Now I have some support for my heels. My heels can connect to the floor. I could also double this up with my block and have my variation here. If you feel like you need a little bit more support, then I highly recommend, if you have ankle mobility issues, getting yourself a yoga wedge, because you will find you get more support with a yoga wedge. And then same thing, heel on the high part, ball of the foot on the mat, exhale, hinge at the hips, sit into your Malasana, hands together at the heart, elbows towards the inside of your knees. If you find that your ankles are the limiting factor in your Malasana, then you need to figure out whether it is in your calves. Maybe your calves are tight, in which case I suggest doing some calf release. And I have a tennis ball release video, which you can see here. It could be that the issue is with the plantar muscle underneath the foot here, all the way from the heel and out, fanning up through to the ball of the foot. If you find that that is your tight spot, then I also have a video on releasing that here. So ankle mobility aside, the other things that you can practice in this pose are bringing the feet closer in towards each other. I highly recommend that you start with the feet wider, maybe a little bit wider than shoulder width. You may even need them wider than that. And then gradually work on bringing the feet in until you can find your Malasana with the feet very narrow. This is your goal. You may not ever get there, but enjoy the journey towards that goal. So think about everything from the ground up first. Are your feet connected to the floor? Can you support your pelvis? And can you support your heels if your heels are not connected to the floor? Work on your ankle mobility, work on releasing your calves and your plantar muscle at the bottom of the foot. Okay, my loves, that's all I have for you today. If you enjoyed this video, then give me a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe if you're not already. And remember, my loves, that karma is only a bitch if you are. So be nice, be kind, and be the change that you want to see in the world.